Hi, this video is for people who did not pass the independent and dependent clauses quiz on their first try. So one of the biggest issues people have when they have trouble telling the difference between an independent and a dependent clause is they don't understand the process that your mind has to go through when you're evaluating these. The very first thing you have to do is look for the subject and the predicate. So before we even get into clauses and phrases, let's review what a subject and a predicate are. Let's say we have the sentence, the cat ate the bird. Who or what is doing something? Cat. So cat would be our subject. What did the cat do? The cat ate. So ate would be our predicate. Cat ate. Subject and predicate. All right, the ocean is beautiful. All right, who or what is doing or being something? The ocean. And then the predicate in this case is kind of tricky, but anytime you see is, was, were, am, be, being, been, any form of the verb be, that's always a verb, even though it doesn't look like it. The rule for how you can tell if something's a verb or not is whether you can change when it happened. So you might be tempted to look at this sentence and say that the predicate is beautiful, but you can't change when the word beautiful happened. You can't say the ocean beautifuled, the ocean is beautifuling, the ocean will beautiful tomorrow. That doesn't make sense because beautiful isn't a verb. What is a verb is the word is. So is our predicate. Subject ocean is predicate. One more example of things that trip people up with subject and predicate. Sometimes there's something called a prepositional phrase inside the sentence, and a prepositional phrase is describing the subject. That's what we have going on here in this particular example. The cup of coffee spilled. All right, you might be tempted to say that coffee is the subject, because after all, that is what spilled, but grammatically speaking, coffee is not the subject of the sentence. How you can tell is if you take this out of the sentence, it still makes sense. The cup spilled. But if I get rid of the cup, then you have of coffee spilled. That doesn't make sense. So you know that of coffee is not the subject of the sentence. Cup is the subject of the sentence. And what did it do? It spilled. So spilled is your predicate. Why is this relevant? Well, the biggest issue that students have when it comes to this subject is telling the difference between a phrase and a clause. In order to be a clause, something has to have both a subject and a predicate. If it's missing either the subject or the predicate, or both, it's a phrase. So let's look at this. Joe studied for his quiz. Is someone doing or being something here? Yes, Joe is. Joe's a subject. What is Joe doing? He's studying. We have a subject, we have a predicate. This is a clause. Next one, studied for his quiz. Okay, well, there's an action going on here, so a predicate, but we don't know who or what is doing that. So this has to be a phrase because it doesn't have a subject. Okay, the bewildered tourist. Okay, somebody's a tourist and they're confused, evidently. Well, we don't know what the tourist did. We just know that they're bewildered. But since there isn't a verb after the word tourist, there's no predicate. We don't know what they did. So this is an example of a phrase. Waiting for the train to stop. Okay, well, who's waiting? I don't know. Could be anyone. So there's no subject here, meaning this is a phrase, not a clause. After I called my mom. All right, this is a little bit trickier because it starts with the word after, and after is obviously not a subject because it's not a person, place, or thing. But someone is doing or being something here. I am. I called my mom. So we have a subject, I, and we have a predicate, called. So even though it has something in front of it, there is a subject and a predicate, meaning this is a clause. Taking my dog for a walk. There's no subject. I don't know who's taking the dog for a walk. So this is a phrase. To see the Empire State Building. Okay, someone wants to see the Empire State Building. I don't know who wants to do that, so we're missing a subject. This is a phrase. My favorite hobby. What about your favorite hobby? Your favorite hobby is sewing? Your favorite hobby sucks? What is the hobby doing or being? I don't know. This is missing a predicate, so it is a phrase. Over the rainbow. What's over the rainbow? Is the rainbow doing something? Is something over there behind the rainbow? I don't know. We have maybe a subject with rainbow, but there's no verb. So I don't know that this even has really a subject to it. So this is definitely a phrase. There isn't both a subject and a predicate. It's always a phrase. Even if I tried hard. Okay, once again, remember, subject, not always going to be the first word of the phrase or the clause. Obviously, even and if are not people, places, or things, so they cannot be subjects. But I can, because I'm a person. And what am I doing? Trying. So our subject would be try, and our predicate would, our subject would be I, and our predicate would be tried. So even though this can't be a complete sentence on its own, it still is a clause because it has a subject and a predicate. All right, on to the main event, independent versus dependent clauses. So both types of clauses have a subject and a predicate, but the difference between them is that a dependent clause will start with a dependent marker word. Sometimes these are called other things like subordinating conjunctions or other fancy words. I just call it dependent marker because it marks it as dependent. And the reason why you need to know the difference is an independent clause expresses a complete thought and it can stand alone as a sentence, while a dependent clause doesn't express a complete thought. It leaves you with a lot of questions, and it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. I give you a list of common dependent marker words here. If you see any of these, then you know it's dependent automatically. All right, when I reach the station. When I reach the station, what? It's not a complete thought. And the word that makes this dependent is when. If I take off when, then we just have I reach the station. That's a complete thought. That could be a complete sentence. But if we have when in the front of it, that makes it sound like you're not done talking. What happened when you reached the station? Okay, and then I already explained I reached the station could be complete by itself. Since you are a good person. Okay, since I'm a good person, what's going to happen? I don't know. It's not a complete thought, and our dependent marker word here is since. Okay, if we got rid of since, then we're just saying you're a good person. Thank you. But yeah, that would be a complete sentence. Until the sun sets. Okay, what's happening until the sun sets? I don't know. It starts with the dependent marker word until. So this is a dependent clause. All right, he only works on Saturdays. We don't have anything in front of the subject he here. So we know, since there is no dependent marker word, this is an independent clause. All right, let's practice them all together really quick. So the process is look to see if you have a subject and a predicate first, and then look to see if there's a dependent marker word or if it sounds like it's an incomplete thought. All right, swimming across the English Channel. Okay, well, the English Channel is a place, so it could be a subject, but it's not doing anything. The English Channel can't swim. Matter of fact, we don't know who is swimming. So this has a predicate, but it doesn't have a subject, which means it is, that's right, a phrase. All right, unless she says not to, what would be our subject? She. Okay, and what did she do? She says. So says is our predicate. We have a subject and a predicate, so we know this is a clause. Now is it independent or dependent? That's right, it's dependent because of the word unless. All right, if we get rid of unless, then it just says, she says not to. That's a complete thought. But if we put unless, then it's like, well, what's going to happen unless she says not to? I have questions. My phone is dead. What's our subject? Phone. What's our predicate? Is. All right. There isn't a dependent marker word in front of this. My is just describing the phone. So since this is a complete thought and it doesn't have any dependent marker words, this would be an independent clause. Whenever he was around, do we have a subject? Yes, we have he. And what is he doing or being? Was. Remember, is, was, were, am, be, being, been, always verbs, even though they don't look like it. All right. Is whenever he was around a complete thought, or does it start with a dependent marker word? You're right, whenever. If you get rid of whenever, he was around could be a complete thought, but whenever he was around makes me wonder what was happening when he was around. And last one, the beautiful sunrise. Okay, well, a sunrise is a thing, so maybe it could be a subject, but I don't see it doing anything. So we have a subject, but no predicate, which means this is a phrase. You're right. All right, so now if you've made it this far, then you have earned the password for your retake. The password is blueberry. So email me the password blueberry and I can get you the retake link. Thank you so much. Bye.